Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Wrestling Challenge Review Series for January 17th, 1987. We've got a few more of these, four more, three more after this one, I think. But January 87, not a time I knew a lot about, but what I do know is that we have over 1,300 episodes available for your listening pleasure. We will have Dynamite tonight. Apparently, we're going to have a new AEW show that'll make four broadcasts for them, two internet and two regular TV, starting in the month of August. Anyway, I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I think wrestling in current day is oversaturated, but anyhow, and I think when you have the lowest viewing audience nationally that you've ever had, oversaturation is not a good idea. Tell you what's not oversaturated though, and that is Wrestling Challenge episodes. Would love to see all 400 plus of them up eventually on the Peacock, but I don't know that it'll ever happen. The U.S. Express and the uh, debut of um, Blackjack Mulligan here. I I know that Mulligan was here during the 70s with the Blackjacks Lanza and Mulligan, but needless to say, this is a enhancement match, six-man tag team matches. I've mentioned before in other audio such as this that in fact a lot of that has to do, I think, with the world-class dependence on six-mans. Um, Rotundo with an atomic drop along the way, double drop kick by Spivey and Rotundo in on the enhancement talent. Not exactly a match that you need to go out of your way to see. At this point, though, Spivey still has some movement. He is nailing some pretty crisp arm drags in comparison to what he would do even 5 years later in the WWF. And of course, he coming around hits pretty strong. Um, but it's interesting because Blackjack Mulligan has been brought back for Bundy, but he's teamed up with these guys here. I think you kind of get the rub on all of them since it really seems like 87 is a time when there's shifting talents more so than average. Early 87 seems like a time they're bringing people on and kind of going in a direction. Rotundo brings about going after the leg of one of the enhancement talents pretty aggressively. Babyface is cut off the ring. Not necessarily a fan of how long this all takes. Double back body drop by the U.S. Express, and for them, the match goes pretty well in their general direction on a continual basis. Shoulder sends him into the shoulder, in with the shoulder a couple of times there, and ultimately um, Irish whips and sends him into the buckle, and ultimately um, it's there. Again, this match, an enhancement match just for the sake of getting people on television. Blackjack Mulligan finally comes in, cleans house, more so than average, and hits the jumping back elbow, which for him is a pretty big deal, and gets the victory there. We move into Macho Man Randy Savage hyping the fact that he is on fire like the dragon as the Intercontinental Champion. Promises to get rid of Steamboat once and for all in the months and weeks to come. Basically says he considers himself to be one of the best in the world as the Intercontinental Champion, who can complain and who can disagree. Butch Reed is up next against Mario Mancini uh, in a in what amounts to be something of a bit of a goofy angle. Andre the Giant is brought out to celebrate his 15 years undefeated right before the start of an enhancement match. Andre goes to shake hands with Slick. It's just goofy because why would you bring him out before a match? It just doesn't really make a whole hill of beans of a lot of sense. But with the heel turn that's to come within the next couple of weeks, it does make sense there. Reed uses power and gets things going. Flying clothesline by Reed gets him the victory. Slickster says that in fact Butch Reed is not willing to, or he is not willing to put the contract of Butch Reed up for sale like he did with Hercules, although he claims to have had many offers. Shoulder tackle and the like by Butch Reed. Hart Foundation says in a prescribed interview that they are in fact going to be the tag team champions by the end of 1987. They target the Bulldogs, and it's a pretty big deal. Hype for WrestleMania 3 already beginning here 6 weeks in advance. But again, there you go again. You can get a big draw out of 6 7 weeks, and get the biggest pay per view in the world at the time going. Outback Jack says he's headed to see his mates in the United States, and basically they show actual shots of crocodiles. Terry Gibbs up next, and willing to um, go to battle in a tag team match. Terry Gibbs and the Gladiator, which is Rick Hunter under a mask, black and uh, red mask there for him. The team of the Can-Am Connection that they are pushing kind of heavily here in the early 1987, of course, done by around May or June of the same year. Hard run with the crossbody by Martel, including also some hip locks and arm bars by Martel. Tag between the Can-Ams, and they are pretty well going at it. Elevated drop kick by the Can-Ams as well. They're bouncing along. Interesting that I think actually Zink and Martel would have been just as good a team as Tito and Martel ended up being. Strike Force about a year or so, maybe a little less than a year and a half later. But interesting that Zink and Martel had some sort of personal falling out from all the stories that are there. Um, Martel gets tripped up from the outside. Heels take over for a little bit. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that in an enhancement match where you're trying to put people over, but I guess they're trying to fill time. The double team of the Can-Am Connection does lead to a victory. Then we go back to more interview spot time there. Things are pretty simple, and Ken Resnick kind of brings out the Macho Man, talks to him about wanting to get rid of Steamboat. Steamboat, his main target, as is Tito Santana, the former Intercontinental Champion and what ends up being the future Intercontinental Champion. They are building Steamboat as the main feud, obviously, because of the crushed larynx. Savage says he will not apologize for that. And so then we go to the Honky Tonk Man in an enhancement talent match. Jimmy Hart, been with the Honky Tonk Man a couple of months now. Honky Tonk Man, super basic stuff. Punch kick. The enhancement talent is given a mini interview. I don't know that I've ever seen that before, but it doesn't go very far because it's less than 3 minutes later that the Honky Tonk Man hits the shake, rattle, and roll. Odd that the Honky Tonk Man wearing suspenders like Jerry Lawler ended up doing in Memphis for a little while. Mocking of the enhancement talent, and the Honky Tonk Man actually hits 2 shake, rattle, and rolls. The presentation of the 15 years celebration or the 3 years as champion celebration for Hulk Hogan with a large trophy. They hype, and this is done on the Piper's Pit, but I covered that on the Superstars from the same era. Superstars of Wrestling from the same era, so if you want to hear my feelings on that Piper's Pit, or the Piper's Pit that follow over the next several weeks here, you can just jump over there. Anyway, needless to say, they highlight Andre the Giant helping Hogan to celebrate winning the title in '84. At this point, Hogan has been champion over 3 years, and that's a pretty big deal at the time. Not big for company history, as both Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund holding the championship for more than that. But Hogan, in his era, a big deal for him to hold the championship for 3 years, and most of the people that were fans during the previous administrations of Backlund and others are not happy with things. The combination now of the official new Dream Team in a 6-man tag team match, of course, that being Beefcake, Valentine, and Bravo. Hillbilly Jim, Pedro Morales, and an enhancement talent here. Not exactly the best of situations. Bravo manages to show a little more quickness than he has been in the previous couple of weeks. Bravo getting bounced around a little bit, but even there, even something like a stun gun across the top rope goes a little awkwardly, and Bravo obviously not in the peak of his physical condition nor his dedication condition. Former tag team champions, the Dream Team, come in. Greg Valentine, stays on the hammer drop elbows and the like. Valentine obviously not willing to take a backward step, and he's been around the WWF since about 1984. He stays through 92, so that's a bit of a while, and leaves early in 92 or late in 91. But it's interesting that there's about a 6 to 7 year run with many undercard talents. Pushed talents don't last that long, except if you really go up and down the card, and it's a committed process. Obviously, the new Dream Team gets the victory there. George Steele comes out and goes after a enhancement talent. Of course, Steele is now a lovable babyface, a la Eugene and the like. Steele goes around the ring brawling with the guy and bites open a turnbuckle after the flying hammerlock finish, and George Steele gets a victory there. We go back to the interview process. The Wizard promises that it will be Kamala that demolishes and destroys Hulk Hogan once and for all. Kamala comes in with a spear, growls and snarls, and does all of that. As we close the program for today, we'll be back with more right after this.